The War of 1812 is one of those wars that everybody can claim victory. The Americans claim victory, the Canadians know they won, and the British claim victory because they're the ones who've forgotten the most about this war. So how can our students judge who won? So how do we establish the criteria, those conditions, and the grounds by which we determine what evidence is based here, and we can make an informed opinion about who won? So if we were to set some criteria for judgment, maybe we might look at, as an example, the naval engagements. And could we say, right, who won based on a set of criteria? And if we establish the criteria, they could be, as an example, victories at sea, maybe the control of the oceans, number of ships either built or engaged. And then if we use that as our criteria, then we can look at the evidence, which is in the actual website. We can look at the criteria and say then, based on victories at sea, you might argue that this is a U.S. victory, that the Navy, U.S. Navy, won the greatest number of victories at sea. Based on that, looking at that criteria, the American Navy won the greatest number of single actions in the year 1812. Although these single actions were not huge strategical victories, they were huge propaganda victories. In fact, they gave such wonderful propaganda phrases and legends, such as "Don't give up the ship," "We have engaged the enemy and he is ours," and such great ships as Old Ironsides. They have become part of the legends of the American Navy. As well, the United States won a terrific victory on Lake Erie, and therefore controlling and undoing some of the land victories that the British won in 1812. As well, the American Navy had a rather important victory on Lake Champlain at Plattsburgh, and that victory may have prevented the complete victory of the British in 1812, and that in fact the United States was extremely vulnerable until that one naval engagement. Could you say that that victory prevented a total British victory? So we can look at, from those perspectives of victory at sea, then maybe the United States comes out ahead. If we use our criteria then, control of the oceans and numbers of ships, then you might say, well, it's a British victory. And in terms of the British victory, the goal of the British was to blockade the American economy, which they did effectively. So much so that by the time 1814 rolls around, the United States is bankrupt and almost ready to default on its loans. The blockade was so effective that in order to carry on, by 1813, many northern United States, or the New England states, were in fact trading with the British even though there was a war going on. The economy was in such shatters that people wanted to have trade and commerce, and any hard currency they could get, even if it was from the British, they wanted it. It is a known fact that most of the American prisoners of war captured by the British and sent to Quebec were in fact being fed with grain bought from American farmers. That's how desperate the U.S. economy was. So you can look at and say then, because of the blockade on the Great Lakes, on the east coast of the United States, and the effect it had on the U.S. economy, almost causing the American government to go bankrupt and default, then it's a British victory. What we'd like our kids to do is, using a set of criteria that they establish, if they're younger students, 2 or 3, if they're senior students, maybe we can get up to 4 and 5, taking the criteria, putting them in rank order, of most important to least important, then we can look at and say, as an informed opinion, who do we think won the war based on our criteria? Looking at the criteria of a naval engagement, you be the judge.